There has been a WHO survey conducted by the Fiji Women's Crisis Center, which shows that violence among women in intimate partner relationship is as high as 64%, whereas in the Pacific region as a whole, violence against women is as high as up to 80%, and it's the most pervasive in this region than any other region in the world. And in addition to that, we have a lot of the countries that still do not have adequate legal protection for women in terms of seeking justice, for violent situations, for family law matters. So in Fiji, we have been lucky to the extent where we have the Family Law Act, which came into force in 2005. It was drafted in 2003 and passed in Parliament. And then we have the Domestic Violence Decree that was promulgated by the current administration in 2009, which was a work that a lot of the women's NGOs had done prior to 2006 and had made several submissions to Parliament for that law to be passed. So that was done in 2009. So whilst we do have better laws than any other Pacific Island countries, and our laws are quite good in terms of providing women accessibility, but the implementation and the enforcement of it is greatly lacking. And that has been one of the biggest barriers for girls and women in our country. What happens in most of the cases, and I provide a lot of support to a lot of the women, and hear a lot of stories when I go into the communities that they just give up and they come back. A lot of the time, they just give up. They may even have the report written, but then, the process that is involved afterwards, they'll just say, it's okay, let it be. And the report never goes ahead. A lot of the women that go to the police station after the kind of questions that's asked, they also don't do anything. There's many situations, but there was a situation where a woman with a baby was, beaten up, and she called the police, and the police officer said, "Oh, can you come to the police station to file the report?" And she has a baby, and she's at home, and her ex-partner came and beat her up at her home, and is drunk and in her yard, but the police is asking her to come to the station to write a report because they don't have a vehicle. She didn't go back. When I even called the police and said they need to go down and take the report, and the police also said that, they don't have a vehicle. So by the time they got in touch with the woman, it was a day or two after, and she just, she didn't want to pursue it after that. She didn't want to, go further. So there are many, cases like that of similar, actions, of inaction by the police that is resulting in women just not pursuing cases. Those times when the cases do go to the court system, and then what happens there? If it is a sexual assault or a rape case, or even a domestic violence case, in the way the prosecution handles the case, the way they process the case, the way they interview the woman to prepare for the case, and the kind of questions they ask, and how much of knowledge they have in terms of the kind of questions they need to ask to be well prepared for the case and to present the case in court. Some of the time it's the police prosecutor that handles the case. We've seen many instances where the police prosecutor handle the case. They're not lawyers. None of the police prosecutors are lawyers. They're just police graduates, maybe with 1 or 2 extra trainings, but that is it. They're not legal officers, so the way they also process the case and handle it damages the way the case is presented in court, and as a result, the kind of conviction that comes out, the way if it's acquitted or not, so all these things make a huge difference. I even know of cases where a woman in a very vulnerable situation with 3 children also at risk in that situation, and where the man has had a history of violence, many police reports, not at one station, several police stations, and finally when it gets to the DPP's office, the prosecutor tells the woman to reconcile and pull out the case. So, so these are things even that happen still today. And then I think that the way even some of the magistrates and judges, the way they give the rulings, the kind of things they say. There was a case a few years ago where a girl who was bitten with a hosepipe by one of her parents, and she went to the police station and she was very, severely injured. So they took her to the hospital, etc. When it did go to court, the magistrate actually told the girl off for being culturally disrespectful and not appreciating what her parent has done for her and for bringing this case to court. And the case was dismissed. So it was dismissed. There was no appeal, nothing afterwards. It was entirely dismissed. So when those kind of things happen and the media covers it, so other people see it, and because there's already so much cultural prejudice, people are like, yes, this girl, nowadays girls are getting so bad and this is what they're doing. No one sees the fact that she was a victim of violence, and for her that was her avenue of justice and getting out of that situation. Social welfare also, and the social welfare officer that also helped the girl take the case to court was told off by the magistrate for bringing that case into court. So then it affects how social welfare officers react and respond to these kind of cases. So so there's been many instances of things happening where girls and women get deterred from seeking justice or from being able to seek justice. There are many women that want to go to the police, but they hear these stories and they know what happens and they just don't go. They would rather just stay in that situation and avoid all the hassles, is how they like to put it.